Hi there. Welcome, everybody. I've got Vanessa Sophie with me today. Vanessa is a marketing strategist and the founder of StellarCom Strategies. She helps entrepreneurs grow a personal brand that attracts clients without burning themselves out. With 12 years of experience in her field, she is known for using custom strategies that leverage the client's unique strengths and builds a brand that feels authentic, not generic or fake. Her client harvesting method follows a 4-step process that helps entrepreneurs go from hustling to get new clients to having a flow of clients who come directly to them and are ready to buy. Welcome to the Bold Moves show, Vanessa.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, it's going to be great to talk to you. I recently attended one of your webinars, or whatever we're calling it these days, mastermind.
Yeah, masterclass.
So many words for it, but basically you were running us through, and we'll get to this, but I want to start with your story first, but we'll get to your harvesting labs system and all the stuff that you talked about on that at a high level, because I know you went through it quite thoroughly there. And I do want to talk to you about some marketing trends that you pointed out that are different between last year and this year. So we'll get there eventually. But I do want to ask you, before we get to that point of our conversation, before you started your business and your client harvesting lab, you spent years in corporate marketing, right? So what was that chapter like? And what experiences did you have there that shaped the work you do now?
Yeah, I was kind of thrown. I've always been a bit, and I was kind of thrown into a lot of roles that didn't have clear boundaries. Like when you just get started in the professional world, I think I was just ready to do it all, and I was ready to learn as I go. And so my first ever role as an employed person after I graduated from college, I was communication and events for a small nonprofit, and it was literally one other full-time person, which was the general manager at the time. And she got sick with cancer, unfortunately, and so she had to go part-time. And so I kind of took on the reins of everything in the business to try to keep it afloat. And so I learned a lot just literally on the go, from like trial and errors and figuring things out on my own. And so that it was just a lot of learning from experience. And personally, that's how I love learning, and that's how I learn best. And it's been very similar roles from there as well. I've worked with a lot of nonprofits, and then typically nonprofits, they need you to do above and beyond because you are doing the work of 3 person at a time and wearing so many different hats. And so that's really where I got to develop so many skills in a short period of time, just from having so many things going on at the same time.
Yeah, that definitely will put you into that position of like learning all the things. But I guess that's a good way of seeing what you like and don't like and testing the waters that way. Like trial by fire, just dive right in and into the end, right?
Well, and the big thing that was a big deal for me was I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit inside of me. I was 15 when I started marketing. And I wanted to be a photographer when I was 15, and Facebook was just starting to be a thing at that time. And so we were all exploring with Facebook pages and those kind of things. And so, just from experience, again, trial and errors and just figuring it out, it was my passion that really drove me to learn about marketing. Because then I moved to London in the United Kingdom, and I wanted to start a vlog, and so again, there, like I was always drawn to marketing out of passion. So that's a lot of how I learned, was binge watching podcasts on YouTube and blogs and just whatever I could find at the time, right?
Yeah, and you're lucky you grew up in a time, like you're younger than me. And so you had the whole YouTube thing, and you could just like consume so much information like for free. That's so awesome. We have that today, but yeah. So you talked about, where are you from originally? Are you from Canada or are you from France?
Originally from Quebec.
Okay.
In Canada.
They detect an accent. I know you speak French, so I wasn't sure if you were from France.
Yeah. I'm French Canadian.
Okay, that makes sense. So what were you like as a kid? You talked about, you're 15, you already knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like, I didn't even know what that word was when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I just find some common threads. I find it really interesting when I talk to people who are entrepreneurs now, and like maybe there's some commonalities as far as like what they were like as a kid. So can you tell me what you were like
Yeah.
that relates to this?
Yeah, it's really interesting because similar to you, like I didn't know what an entrepreneur was. I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. What I knew was that I had big dreams and big visions, and I had to find a way to make it happen, regardless of what that looked like. And that really took place for me because I remember when I was very young, I was maybe between 5 and 10 years old, and my first dream was I wanted to be an author. And I wanted to write fiction books. And I was already like, I was writing down on paper, I was writing stories and books, and I had like a pile of paper. And I remember I was telling everyone, I was like, I'm going to be a published author. And they were like, how are you going to do that? I'm like, well, I'll figure it out. And I remember like researching like publishing house and how it works. And I was like 7 or 8. And my mom was very supportive of all of this because she had always told me, she's like, if you want something, you can find a way to make it happen. And so that was always my mindset, is if I want something, I'll find a way to make it happen, even when it doesn't make sense, even when the world is telling you, no, like you can't do that. So I think that's really where the spirit got started, is just having this firm idea that I can achieve anything.
Yeah, I think is it Marie Forleo that talks about everything is figure outable, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Her made up word for that. I think that you need to have that as an entrepreneur, because it's like the path is not laid out before us. Like we don't learn about this at school. We don't, yeah, you can get your degree in university and stuff like that, but we're not taught at an early age how to think like this, and things can go sideways really quickly as an entrepreneur. You set up your own guardrails and whatnot, and the sky's the limit. So really having that grit and that tenacity is really helpful. So that's great. I mean, I'm sure it contributes to what you do today. So let's talk about what you do today. So what originally pushed you to start your own business then? You had dreams about being an author, a photographer, you settled on marketing strategies. So what problem, like coming out of the nonprofit world, what problem did you feel called to solve for the entrepreneurs that you want to serve today?
Yeah, well, as I've already talked about a little bit, I was lit up by building some form of a brand or a business, just as a photographer. I was not even thinking about it from a business perspective. I just wanted to do something that I was passionate about, and I wanted to figure out a way that I could make it profitable and potentially make that my full-time thing. And I counted 7 brands that I built since I was 15 in many different areas, because I'm a multi-passionate entrepreneur, another word from Mary Forleo. And what I realized later on was that the common thread of all these things is I really had to learn marketing in depth, because, you may have the idea, but how do you actually make it into a business, and how do you actually start getting clients from it? What is knowing how to market yourself and how to market different ideas in different industries and with different people. And then I was obviously starting to see a lot of friends and people around me who were in a similar place where they were also trying to build a business. And I was starting to have more and more friends that were also passionate and entrepreneurs like me. And I was seeing what they were doing, and I'm like, oh, well, you could do this better. Like I so wanted to help them, because I could see that they had the same passion that I had, but they didn't have the same expertise or perspective or knowledge that I had on marketing. And so naturally I just wanted to step in, and I helped a couple of my friends with their brand. Like I started with, okay, let's pick your brand colors and pick something that reflects who you are. And then give them feedback on their content and, things like that. And I really believe that one of the gifts that I have is to make things structured and efficient. And so sometimes I can see clearly when people are trying to write a post, for example, or write a story, and I see where there's turns of sentences that are confusing or that are not really landing as they should. And so I really wanted to help with this. And so it was around 2021 that I started pivoting what I was doing. And I was like, why? Like everything that I've been doing up until now has been basically helping with marketing and branding. So why don't I make that my thing? So that's kind of how it pivoted from there.
Right. Yeah. So you, like many I've talked to, you use that word multi-passionate entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a common thread I see. But I love that you were able to boil down, like, between all these 7 companies that you built. Well, what was the common denominator? And that's like everybody needs marketing, right? Everybody needs
Yeah.
to do it, but most people are confused about how to do it or what to do
Yeah.
exactly, right? That's going to
Yeah.
work, because you can waste a lot of time doing the wrong thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So having that, being able to see the high level picture and connect all the dots is, like, I think where people, they just can't do it. And we can't do it for ourselves either. It's like trying to do eye surgery on yourself. You could be the greatest
Mm-hmm.
surgeon in the
Mm-hmm.
world. You just can't do it for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've talked before about like stopping the hustle, right? Stop hustling for clients. Start attracting clients. We talked a little bit just now about this, like just throwing spaghetti at the wall tactics. What do you
Mm-hmm.
see? Like, what do you think is broken out there, and how most entrepreneurs approach their marketing, and or even hiring someone, like, we've all had our, even in my industry, the branding and web design, I've heard horror stories about, like, I didn't get what I paid for, and like they
Mm-hmm.
took me for a ride. Like, what do you see that's broken in the marketing industry as a whole that you'd love to fix?
Yeah. There's so many directions I could go with this. The main thing that comes up is, you kind of talked about hustling too much, and I find people, it's easy to overcomplicate marketing because I gotta admit, it is a beast. Like there's so many different ways that we can do marketing, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. And then we either get stuck on the hamster wheel and try to do everything, and I love the saying, if you try to catch 2 rabbits at the same time, you end up catching none.
Yeah.
And so it's more important to focus on one thing and do it well and focus on what matters than trying to do it all. And that's often the trap that we can get carried under with marketing, or trying to follow the wrong path because, oh, well, it worked for Susie and so it should work for me. But everything should be customized because your business, your industry, your energy, your unique essence, the thing that makes you you isn't going to be portrayed the same way. And so I'm a big fan of being super intentional about the way that we do things and focused on a few things, but focus on doing it right. And then the other piece that I see is a big challenge in the industry is, oh man, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah,
That's
just
okay.
easily getting overwhelmed is a big trap that I see often. Oh, and it was about what you said, is one of the horror stories that we hear about, oh, well, I invested this in marketing and it didn't work. Where I often see this happen is when we're looking at only one piece of marketing. So I see this a lot with people who invest in ads too soon and they don't have a
Mhm.
strategy, or they'll hire a social media manager and then they wonder why it's not getting them more clients. But if we're looking at marketing from a very narrow perspective, someone who's only focused on social media or someone who's only focused on ads does not get the full picture. And that's often what's missing, is the different puzzle pieces that are not talking to each other. And so that's why my role as a marketing strategist is I'm helping you build the puzzle. We have all the puzzle pieces, but we're looking at the big picture at the same time. Because I don't know if you ever tried building a puzzle without the
The
cover
box,
image
yeah.
on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much harder.
Yeah,
So
somewhat
that's the way that I
impossible.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
what you
you'll make
say
your
about,
job harder.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you talked about overcomplicating things, and trying to do too much. So how do you help your clients find a balance, though? Because you also talked about marketing as a holistic thing, right? You don't just want to focus on one thing alone. All the things help each other and come around, right? So how do you balance that holistic marketing with not overcomplicating or overwhelming yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a very unique approach in the way that I bring up marketing for my clients and for everyone. That very first exercise that they get to do, that everyone so far that I've worked with have been blown away by doing this exercise. I call it the funnel map, which is
Okay.
basically mapping out all of the different parts of marketing in your business, basically anything that will potentially bring you clients. And it literally looks like a murder map with all of the pins that are related to each other and trying to see the patterns.
Okay.
So we have a lot of fun doing that, but this is the core foundation of everything. And then once we have that, we see all of the moving pieces in the business. And then from there, I start with eliminating everything and identifying what is the critical path, what is the main path that currently brings you clients that is really flowing well, and then focusing on this. And then then we're going to ask the question: is this really aligned? Is this how we can scale? Is it really solid? Can we automate it? Can we make it more effective? And so then we focus on one funnel path. And once we have that very secured, very solid in place, then we can start looking at what else we want to add. And so it kind of becomes a tree, and focusing on solidifying one piece at a time. That's how we can start adding more. But we can't try to catch two rabbits at the same time. So we have to focus on one thing at a time.
I love that answer, the funnel map. I love it. And just focus on what's working for you, what do you want to give your energy to, what charges you, lights you up, right? If you're not excited about it, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I have a podcast because I like talking to people, right? I'm curious. I love asking questions. My husband's like, shut up, you ask too many questions. I'm like, well, that's who I am. But not everybody would want to do that or would work with everybody, right? So finding that critical path, like you say. Would you say, I just was talking to somebody this morning, and we always talk about marketing strategies. Like, there's another entrepreneur, and we were just catching up, and she was saying that she's really focusing right now on word of mouth referrals, and that's her path. Have any of your clients just solely taken that path alone, like without social media? Like, she does email newsletters and stuff like that too. But would that ever be a strategy that you would like give the green light to if someone just wanted to do solely like word of mouth marketing, like not ads, not digital online presence or anything like that? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question. And I'm going to say it depends, because everything in marketing depends. It depends on the business, and it depends on the person's goals. What I call that manual marketing, when you're only focused on doing word of mouth, doing networking, those kind of things. I call it manual marketing because it's very dependent on the time of the number of efforts that you can put. It's a little bit more slow. It's a little bit more laborious, but it can absolutely work. And sometimes manual works better than other strategies. So especially for smaller businesses that are just getting started, that want something a little bit more established, absolutely. And that is, if someone was just getting started tomorrow morning, I would say start with this. And so that can definitely bring business faster and more efficiently. But then eventually, when we're starting to think about scaling, it can be a little bit more challenging. And if we want things to be more automated and more consistent, then we need to have strategies in place that are a bit more automated. And the challenge with the word of mouth and all of this is that it can die quickly. If someone retracts from society for a year and then hopes to come back at some point, it can be really hard, because then people haven't heard from you in a while, and you have to rebuild trust, because at some point when you haven't seen someone in a really long time, you kind of forget about them. And so that's where that tactic can really work. Again, depends on the business and depends on the goals. But that's what I would say about it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess I didn't give the full picture, like, excuse me, she does email marketing, and she also does these like free, like these labs that she has for free. So you can come in, like any past client, or even if you've never been her client, there's like a little mini workshop she does once a month for free, half an hour or something like that. You can come ask your question and stuff like that. So I guess that's a form of marketing that she has to advertise. But yeah, that makes sense. And if you have like a boutique business where you don't only need a handful of clients in a year, and maybe it's a high ticket item, maybe that does work better for you, because people like that high touch, person to person interaction. And so, like you say, it's all kind of dependent on the business and your goals, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your brand a little bit right now. So right now you're StellarCom Strategies. You're shifting to Client Harvesting Lab. What prompted that shift, and how does that better reflect what you're doing today, or going to be doing?
Yeah. So StellarCom Strategies was built in, when I was just getting started in business, and I just wanted to find a name, and I liked stars, and I was like, the type of marketing that I do is stellar. And so it was well fitting for this. And at first I built the business a little bit more like an agency model, and it served its purpose. I really enjoyed it for a while, but I've been feeling the pull to change perspective a little bit. And then the name StellarCom Strategies, it still feels like it's an umbrella name to me, but I wanted something that was a little bit more specific in what I was doing, where people could get it, because StellarCom Strategies is very broad, and you could easily wonder, but what is it about? It's about strategies, and that's about it. Exactly. So when I was starting to work on my client harvesting method and putting everything together, and then I came up with the lab, which is my training that I have for people, and mentorship that I have all around the client harvesting lab, it just felt very aligned for me, and it felt like it was very specific to what I was doing. And then I just feel like that's how the brand should naturally pivot. Because it just feels like it explains better what I'm all about.
Yeah, it's very specific, and it's like, oh, I get it immediately, like what you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about your system, because I know you have a 4-part framework that comes with this, and I love frameworks. I love when people have that. Like it, if you've ever worked with a coach or a strategist and they don't have a framework, you can feel like you're floating in space. So the frameworks, love that you have one. So walk us through just briefly, because I know you can probably talk an hour on this or something. You can make another mastermind on this, but just briefly walk us through the 4 steps of your framework, and explain how they work together to create that steady flow of clients that everyone wants.
Yeah. Well, I had this moment where I was really going deep, thinking about what is marketing, and how do you explain marketing? How do you simplify marketing? And I love working in analogies, because it's so easy for people to understand when you have an analogy to explain it. And so I was thinking about growing plants. And specifically, if you're growing like blueberries or raspberries, or, like something that has foods that you harvest in the summer or in the fall. And so then I was thinking about marketing from that perspective, and I was seeing every piece that it takes to harvest something. And it's the exact same. You can do the perfect comparison with marketing. And so I divided it into the four things. So what do you need to harvest plants, or to get, your fruits, to taste the fruits of your labor, to put it that way, which would be basically the analogy to get clients. And so you need sun, obviously, to have your plants grow. And in marketing, that would be visibility. So you need the spotlight on what you do and who you are. You need soil. So, and naturally we need good soil, like we need rich soil, because we know that there's different plants will like different soil. And then if it's not rich enough, then they might not flourish. And, so there's lots of things that go with the soil. But to me, the soil in marketing is branding. And so making sure that the foundation is in place, and then it speaks with your ideal clients. Because at the end of the day, if your messages and what you do isn't unique enough, or it's not clear enough, and it's not speaking to the right people, then it doesn't matter how much efforts we can put into your marketing. If the soil isn't in place, then everything else that comes out of it will not be of quality. It will have a harder time to grow and harvest.
Yeah.
And then we plant the seeds. So planting the seeds to me is the funnels. So having a strategy in place, having a funnel that will lead people from the first moment that they hear about you until the day that they become your client, there should be a strategy in place for that. And that's what I call a funnel.
Oh,
And so
perfect.
soil, seeds, and sun. And then the last element is water, naturally, because we need to water our plants.
Okay.
And the water is the energy that you pour into what you do. And so once we have all of that in place, you need to keep on showing up and nurturing and pouring energy. And so that's us watering the seeds every day so that they can eventually grow. And so those are the basic foundations of the client harvesting method.
Oh, perfect. Now I get the name.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. And let me guess, you were on a walk in the woods when you thought of this idea, right?
Not even, but I was thinking of it came to me because I was thinking of my grandmother's raspberry bush that she had in the backyard when we were kids. And I just remember, and I even heard her talk about it recently, so it's still there after like 20 years. But it stood out to me because I was thinking about how much we were feasting on raspberries all over the summer, and she had that raspberry bush in the backyard, but she was barely doing anything for it. You know, she was just trimming the branches once in a while, but it's not like there was lots of labors required. And so I was thinking of when we do marketing in the right way and that we have the foundation in place and that we put our seeds in a situation when they can grow and flourish, then we get to that point where we can harvest, and the only thing that we need to do once in a while is make sure it gets enough sun and water, and then trim the bushes if you need to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because we can spend so much energy on the wrong thing. So what would you say to a client who's, trying something out? How much time do you give it before you give up on that raspberry bush and plant something else? Like what's the rule of thumb there?
It's hard to give a proper answer for this because, again, it depends on so many things. It depends on how much. And I don't believe that at some point it's also just a matter of giving up, but it's also a matter of tweaking along the way. Because it doesn't mean that the entire thing is, needs to be put to bed, but maybe it's just, that needs to be tweaked and that needs to be improved. But that is very much a case-to-case basis.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess I was being dramatic. That's my Greek side. I'm Greek, so we're very dramatic. Throw it all away and start over again.
Off with his head.
Yeah, exactly. It can feel like that sometimes. Like you're especially if you don't have a strategy, you haven't worked with somebody, if you're starting out and you're just doing this on your own kind of thing, it can feel a lot overwhelming and like am I doing the right thing? So definitely having a strategy is what you want to do. But I love the when you said the soil part is branding. I actually have a quote in my little workshop that I go through with clients about, and it literally says that. It says that branding is the fertile soil that you and your client benefit from. So there you go.
Oh, that's so good. You're backing out my method. I love it.
Yeah, and I didn't even know it. So there you go. Well, let's talk a little bit about, just again at a high level, the kind of stuff that you covered in that masterclass that I attended with you about the shifts that we've seen between last year and this year, and what kind of tactics and things like this that people should be prioritizing, and what ones they should be dropping this year. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, the masterclass that you attended, just for a little bit of context, was based out of reflecting on all the work and content that I did in 2025 and figuring out that there has been a lot of shifts in the industry, especially since AI has been rising a lot. A lot more people are using AI in their marketing now. And so that means that there's more marketing out there. It means that there's a lot more quality things, and the world is becoming way noisier. And now that we have access to information at the tip of our fingers, literally, we can ask ChatGPT pretty much anything. We can ask ChatGPT to draft a marketing strategy if we want to. And so that's why there's a lot of things that needs to shift to adapt to that now market, because a lot of the way, a big part of the way that marketing was done in the past was, oh, you need to do educational content and offer free
Yeah.
value and those kind of things. And it doesn't work as well anymore because we have so much of that. We're kind of overfed by it. And
Yeah.
so, you know, now that doesn't really resonate as much with people, because even I said it plainly when I was doing that masterclass. I was like, I don't want to do master classes anymore because that's not what people need. You don't need more information.
Right.
You just need to implement, and you need actual help to implement things. But I really wanted to do it because I knew that there was lots that could be shared on that masterclass. And so the big shift as of right now is we're shifting away from just information and professionalism and shifting towards personal brands and showing personality, being authentic, being intentional. And it's really interesting because we're not used to it. And especially in business, we tend to think that, oh, but we have to put our best foot forward and I have to look perfect when I'm on camera and I need to have quality video equipment and just all the things. And the thing is, because we can now have that in much easier access now, it's harder and harder to tell what's real and what's fake. And so authentic content is actually standing out more because people feel the human piece of it. And so content that shows personality, that shows polarity, that shows authenticity. Like, how many videos do we see on Instagram and TikTok that go viral that are just random and stupid? You know, like there's next to no editing on that, and it's just capturing really raw moments. And it still really performs because people are looking for human connection more than ever. And especially after going through, you know, the pandemic, and now we're in a digital world and all of that. And so we're really looking to reconnect with other humans. And so we need to think of our marketing in that way nowadays, to build trust, to build community, to build connections. And so that's where, in a way, it's interesting because it's actually much easier, because I'm telling you, basically just be yourself and tell your story. But doing that in a way, like, it feels very vulnerable for a lot of people. And also doing it in the right way and doing it strategically is a whole different game as well. So yeah, there's lots that needs to be adapted here.
Yeah. So yeah, shifting to a personal brand space. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, how would you say, would that still be applicable to a company that has a larger team? Would you suggest, somebody be the spokesperson of that brand, like put a face to that brand? How would this work for like a larger business? Because I don't know about you, but I work a lot with solopreneurs, but sometimes they're solo, they have teams and stuff like that. So how would you advise like a larger business or team type of situation to really capture that personal brand side?
Yeah, there's still ways to tap into the storytelling aspect and the human aspect, even without putting a clear brand or a clear person. That could be one of the strategies, is to have a spokesperson and to have, the CEO have the strong personal brand. So that would be one way to do it. But I just think of a few companies that I've seen recently that do a really good job at it. And it's not just telling but first of all, it's clearly showing their brand values and their brand personality. So even if it's not a person per se, it's showing the humanness behind the brand. So there's a way to showcase that. But it's also, in the type of content that we create, it's really to highlight the personal stories, or just the transforming the content so that it's more stories oriented rather than it is informational. And I just think of a company that really made a mark on me recently, that was product based, which it would be really hard to build a personal brand around a product base. But something that they did really well was partnering with a bunch of influencers. And then they were telling the story around the product. And so that is something that is very easy, relatable. And that's actually what got me to buy their products, is that they had one of their videos that was very aligned with my story. And so then I wanted the same story, so I bought their product. So that's one way to do it. And another thing is, I just saw Microsoft Excel had a page on Threads the other day, and I thought they had a really genius way of doing things where it was basically a bunch of jokes, but like nerdy jokes for Excel. And I was thinking about what a great way to highlight the human experience that someone would go through by using their product, but also showing personality by having those dad jokes and those silly things that were very nerdy. And so I thought that that was such a great way, you know, take a company that is very bland, very standard, but give it personality. That was something that really stood out to me.
That makes sense. It's like when, I don't know if this is a real thing, but it's like getting in on the inside joke that your customers are already privy
Yeah.
to, like Lego, like if you step on a Lego, it's like you basically feel like you've been shot, like, without any shoes on. So they made, I don't know if this is real again, but I saw like Lego slippers, like, so like it's like the inside joke of Lego, and they're in on it too. Like
Yeah.
they know that and now we all know. And so they made a thing around it, like, and that's their marketing, part of their marketing now. So I get,
Well, and that's where it's highlighting a very human moment.
yeah.
So that's where we're shining the spotlight nowadays with marketing, is showing the humanness and the moments of what that brand would be about more than the brand or the product itself.
Yeah, and not being afraid to like kind of shed that stuffiness, the corporateness, because nobody connects with that, right? So telling the bigger story, and I like the brand that you explained, you putting your customers as the spokespeople, like from their point of view. That's really smart.
Yeah.
So, well, that leads me into my next question about messaging and helping your clients refine messaging, because we all have to find our brand voice, and you talked about a couple examples there, using humor. Do you use it? Do you not use it? How far do you go? How far do you go with sharing your personal side, especially if you're a solopreneur? So how does it look like to help someone refine their messaging so it feels authentic, it doesn't feel forced, it also feels differentiated? What are some common mistakes you see that entrepreneurs make, and that maybe push clients away rather than helping them attract clients? Talk to me a bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think the main thing here is, and I'm sure because this is a bit of a branding strategy, but first we need to define what the brand is. And so we need to be clear around what's our tone of voice, what are our values, like just really define the brand and have a clear idea on what is it that you stand for. And so that will help put the boundaries around what do you do and what do you not do. And so, for example, if part of your brand is I never swear, then you know that this is off the charts, so you can't go there. But just take Gary Vee, for example, and he swears all the time, and that's very much on brand for him. And so he adapted that this is a go. And so first setting those boundaries to know what do we do and what do we not do will really help clarify what's on brand and what's not. So that really helps with how to craft the messaging from there. And then after that, I would say one of the most important thing when it comes to messaging is really talking in the language of your ideal audience. And oftentimes we default to speaking as the expert, and we're not necessarily talking the same language as them, because picture a doctor trying to talk as a doctor to a patient who knows nothing about what, the different bones in your body are, and they talk to you and you're like, can you translate this in English, please? Right. And so because we're in our head as the expert most of the time, we tend to speak from that perspective, but that doesn't mean that it's being received. And so a great idea is to imagine a conversation between your ideal client and their best friend. What would they say and how would they say it? And then you speak that language. And so that is going to resonate with them a lot more rather than speaking from the professional perspective. So that's a great way to look at it. And sorry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, you're really good at analogies, because like I like that idea of like, imagine them talking to their best friend, like how would they talk? I love that. Keep going.
Well, so yeah, it's like if you think about what they would say, they're not going to say, "Oh, I feel like I need to, I don't know, I need to refine my funnel to,
Yeah.
make my messaging." Like if they don't know marketing, they don't know that this is what they need to do. What they're saying to their best friend is, "Oh gosh, I'm struggling with clients. I feel like I'm working all the time and it's getting me nowhere." And so then we know that that's the language we need to use because that's what's going to resonate with them.
Yep.
So that's where they're being the fly on the wall between the conversation between them and their best friend is a great way to look at it. And then the other piece that I see being a mistake often is just the language not being clear. And oftentimes it makes sense in our heads because obviously like we've crafted it and we know what we're trying to say, but it's not necessarily clear on the other end. And when it comes to communication, the simpler and the shorter, the better. And so there's lots of, and also very specific, because there's lots of times where I'll review content from some clients or even just, people that I want to help just for fun. And I read a sentence and I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like I get the idea, but it's not punchy enough. And so that's where I really encourage people to like be as specific as possible with your words, very intentional, and remove all of the fluff, all the extra that is not necessary here, just to keep it as smooth as possible.
Yes. And there, I came up with a 3-word alliterated framework for that. Simple, short, and specific.
Yes. Oh, that's good.
3 S's. That's what your messaging should be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I should think about that too when I'm speaking, because like I remember when I broke my arm, they were like, "Oh yeah, you have a distal radial fracture," and I was like, "What?
Yeah.
What? I'm like, what is that?" And I'm like, "Google that." I'm telling my husband, "Google that." It's like, you just should have told me like the little nubby part here got broken off, and then now it's down here. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's bad. But yeah, anyway, so I'll have to remember that when I'm speaking, in my jargon, which I try not to do, but we all have it. It's called the curse of knowledge. Like we all have it. It's so familiar to us and we kind of think everybody else should know it, but they probably don't, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
speaking simply is ideal. So let's talk a little bit about mindset and how that can sabotage strategy. I don't know if you have any examples to share about how some of that internal resistance showed up in one of your clients' marketing and how you helped them through that, but or maybe not, maybe just in general. But how does mindset work when it comes to marketing strategy?
Yeah, that's something that I think is really important and oftentimes overlooked because, especially in business, we think about things from a very strategic perspective and we don't stop and think about what's going on in the inner world. And especially because we're going towards that very personal brand strategy, and especially valid for entrepreneurs as well, where you are the business. And so when you're promoting your business, you're basically promoting yourself. And so we can have the best strategy in the world, but at the end of the day, if you feel awkward showing up, you feel awkward talking about it, you're mumbling when you talk about it, and you're playing it down, or not showing up at all because you're like, oh, well, I don't like showing up on videos, and so I'm never gonna, I don't want to talk about myself on social media. And I see that being a block for a lot of people, and especially because I start telling people more and more, you need to be bold, you need to create polarity, because staying bland, staying safe isn't going to give you attention. And so there's a lot of internal emotion that can be stirred up with this, because we have to be okay that we're going to repel some people. And that's actually a big piece of marketing strategy nowadays, is we need to attract and we need to repel. But the idea that we may not be liked by some people is very intimidating. And so if we don't address all of this, I can give you the best strategy ever, but that doesn't mean you're going to implement it. And then if it's not implemented, then obviously it's not going to get results. So I definitely see that being a factor. And I remember just a recent story actually of one of my clients who was struggling to promote her offer. And like, again, we would strategize her offer over and over again and had a clear, beautiful plan for it, but there was a block every time that it came to actually posting about it. And so she kept on coming back and being like, why won't this work? And so we actually had to dig into mindset stuff and just realize that there was a block there. And it's as soon as we removed that block, that so the next day she was like, I just did a live and I just talked about it and I put it in my stories and now people are reaching out and then everything unblocked. But it was not the strategy, it was the mindset that was the problem. And so that's where I really believe that we need to include this as part of marketing, because we can't implement without looking at the mindset as part of it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just the clarity, like how do I want to talk about it, and what does that line in the sand look like for me? Like what kind of parameters am I drawing for myself? Like we talked about polarity, and it's great to have that. Like what do I believe above all else, and what do I value that maybe, is opposite to the people doing similar things as me. And sometimes it's either hard to find that thing, or it's hard to stick to your guns on that thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think
especially because the online world can get so wild, and behind a screen it's so easy for people to get into insults and just be disrespectful. And so it can be really hard, and we have to be okay with just like, okay, well, I'm not gonna, this isn't my client anyway, so I'm not gonna consider that. And it's easier said than done.
Yeah, you almost have to have a damage control plan. Like if this happens, this is how I will react to protect my time and my energy, right? Because I know this about myself. Like I know I can spin out if somebody, attacks me or they get the wrong idea or something like that. And you're just like, no, don't think that about me. Like I want to be loved. Everyone's in that category, I think. But having that plan, like as part of your marketing plan, maybe is like, that damage control plan, like how do I respond to this, or do I respond to this, or I don't know, right? Like that could possibly be part of the plan. So yep, I think I have something like that I'm trying to market as well, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around how do I do this, because I think some people, it is a bit polarizing and it's a bit of a new concept. I won't say what it is right now, but I feel that. So when you said that, I was like, I deeply feel that. So I get it. It's scary to put yourself out there in new ways that are, being bold. This whole show and my business is called Be Bold. So it's like, even I'm scared to do that too, right?
Yeah.
But I know it has to be done. So you just have to find a way.
Well, on that, I want to say a quote that really changed the game for me on that is the idea that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving despite the fear.
Exactly.
And so being bold doesn't mean that you're going to post something without an ounce of fear inside of you. It just means you're going to feel the fear, honestly, but it's deciding to do it anyways.
You do it anyway. Yeah. And there's been tons of moments where I've done that in my life, whether it's business or sports or something else. So I just have to tap back into that and just try it, because what's the worst that can happen? Especially online, you can always take something down, right? It's not the end of the world. You just have to get out there.
Mark the person, move on.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody remembers things anyway. They scroll past. There's a bazillion things on the internet. So just have to
and the thing too is that if you have a polarizing idea, you're going to attract the people who also resonate on that polarizing idea. Anyone who does not isn't your ideal client. And anyone who does and see that comment from the other side are going to think, well, who do they think they are? Like Angela knows what she's talking about. So they're probably going to back you up anyways. So really at the end of the day, there's not that much to lose.
That's true. And I just have to think about that, right? I have to think about the side that I am speaking to. So
exactly,
that's less scary, right? Because you'll have some allies there. Well, let's wrap this up by saying, like, what for entrepreneurs that are listening, that they feel exhausted, they're doing all the things. I feel like you were, at the beginning of your career with the nonprofits, they're doing all the marketing things. They have little return. What's the first shift that you would recommend they make this week?
The first shift is just getting clear on what is it that you're actually trying to achieve. Pick one thing and focus on that. And, if you even just focus on one thing and focus on doing it well, focus on tweaking along the way, That'll feel a lot more achievable rather than trying to do all of the things. The main thing that I always look at when it comes to marketing is imagining the journey that people go through from the first moment that they hear about you until they become a client. What does that look like? And make sure that you have a solid strategy in place to guide them through that journey. And that's basically what we do with the funnel map. And so that's where I would start.
Perfect. Don't throw out the raspberry bush. Maybe just trim the raspberry bush to start.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If some it's like if you're a plant lover, you know that if part of your plant is dying, you're like,
You cut it
okay,
off.
cutting this so that the stem that stays healthy and does not have to furnish all the nutrients for the ones that are dying.
Exactly. Love the analogies. I'm an analogy person too, so I'm there with you. Well, for anyone who wants to find you and support you online, where can they do that?
I'm very active on Facebook and Instagram at I am Vanessa Sophie on Facebook. And recently I started playing on Threads. So I'm now also very active on Threads and also a little bit on LinkedIn and Substack. Anyone who wants to know the first step to get out of this hamster wheel, who wants a little bit of direction with their marketing strategy, I offer, as of right now, I decided to offer this for free. I do mini audits for people. So there's a form that you can fill out with just sharing, okay, what are the challenges that you're going through? Where are you on the spinning wheel at the moment? And then I'll send you some custom feedback on here's like 1 to 3 things tops that I think you can implement right away to start feeling like you're in control again.
Nice. Perfect. And we will put that in the show notes because I know it's less a complicated kind of website to write down right here as you see it. So we will be putting that on the show notes. And also your website for now, I know it's changing, but for now it's StellarComStrategies.com is where people can reach out to you. Find what you do on there and find your email and stuff like that. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. I love hearing like your thought process behind everything, and inspiration, and I just love the backstories, right? I live for those. So that was great. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me, and thank you everybody for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.
Lovely. Thank you.